people who are newer to business, who maybe are at risk of getting into that sort of, oh shit, tax deadline, tax debt spiral, where your business starts to make money, maybe more than you expected. You didn't realize the tax bill was going to be as big as it is. You're not prepared for it. You run out of cash. You're not paying quarterly taxes and keeping ahead of your tax bill for the year. And so you can get into this bad cycle of owing for last year, having to play catch up, and not having the cash in your account to keep up with your current quarterly tax payments. Okay. This is the scenario. This is the nightmare I want to keep you out of. And so let's talk about how you can avoid that.
Welcome to the Sunlight Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for self-employed people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, tax pro, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're a creative or soul-centered entrepreneur or wellness practitioner who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place.
Hello. Oh, the end of the year is so crazy. Am I right? I don't know about you, but I am definitely feeling just all the holiday concerts, all the holiday gatherings. Not to mention both my daughter and I are both December birthdays, and so we also have those to fit in among the craziness. I hope that you are getting a chance to slow down and you're not feeling maybe as bananas busy as I do this time of year, but there we go. That's what it is. So speaking of the end of the year, I wanted to come to you with a little bit of year-end tax planning information, ways to stash some extra money. But the big one for me is really planning for the cash crunch that comes in April. If you do, I'm trying to emphasize in my work now that a little bit of planning beforehand will save you money and time and hassle and stress later. So here's a new opportunity to take maybe an hour to kind of do a little bit of budgeting, get out your pencil and do a little bit of math in order to set yourself up for success, for cash in the bank, and for fully funding your retirement, your IRA, so that you don't screw yourself out of your IRA contribution because you didn't expect the tax bill that was due. All right. So the two things I want to talk to you about, the first thing is let's talk about a little bit of year-end tax planning. Now, I think a lot of people tend to, especially sort of working class, middle class people, tend to think year-end tax planning is for somebody else, right? That it's only a thing that rich people do, or it just sounds boring, or they're busy at this time of year and not prepared to do it. I want to tell you that this is a habit of the wealthy, but it doesn't need to be only for the wealthy. It really is for everyone. Taking some time, looking at your accounts at the end of the year, getting your bookkeeping up to date, it gives you a lot of power to put the maximum contribution amount into your various tax advantaged accounts, 401ks, 403bs, workplace benefits, HSAs, FSAs. Put the maximum into those accounts. And basically, that's my summary here. That's what you want to do before the December 31st deadline. It's also a time to look at your business books. So in your freelance operations, do your bookkeeping before the end of the year, because when you see what your profit is, you will have a sense of what kind of tax rate you're going to have for the year and how much profit margin you have. And one of the things that you can do to help yourself is you can accelerate purchases and you can decelerate income. Okay, so this is one of the levers you can use only for a few weeks of the year at the end between the sort of December, January shift. Okay, let's just talk for a minute about accelerating purchases, decelerating income. So what I'm talking about here is if you want to lower the tax on your self-employment, on your freelance work, one of the things that you can do, get your bookkeeping up to date. That's a critical component of this because you can only do this with the full knowledge of what your profit is to date. You might want to consider at this time of year decelerating income. So if you have invoices you haven't sent out at this point, there's a little bit of wiggle room here where you could slow walk those invoices so that you don't receive the money until January. In other words, until the next taxable calendar year. In tax planning, we always say a tax deferred is a tax, basically, a tax deferred is a good thing, essentially. So that's a possibility. Now, look, if you need the money this month, by all means, send your invoices when you normally would. You don't need to do this. But if you are looking at a really good profitable year, if you want a tool to lower your income taxes for tax year 2023, you can slow walk your last invoices of the year and only try to get that income in January, right? Or pre-schedule those invoices for, December 31st, January 1st, something like that. Okay. Now, on the other side of that same coin are accelerating expenses. Now, I want to be really careful here. You don't want to get too slap happy with this strategy and just go out and spend money that you wouldn't normally spend. You don't want to just spend more money than you should, right? That's important. But one thing you can do is you can spend money you would be spending anyway right now at the end of the year to effectively lower this year's taxable income, but give you a benefit that will proceed into the following calendar year. For example, I will often pay my business coach a lump sum amount at the end of the year, and I'm prepaying for coaching that will go through the next calendar year. Likewise, if there are programs you want to join, I don't know, hint, hint, my program, Money Bootcamp, is one of these programs. If there are programs, courses, coaching that you have been thinking about joining, the year end, doing it before December 31st, can be one of these accelerated purchases. You'll receive the benefit of that purchase throughout the next calendar year if it's something you were thinking about, but it will lower your taxes for this year. So that's all I want to say about year-end tax planning strategy. I definitely do go a lot further into year-end tax planning within my program, but those are the sort of high-level keys to tax planning, year-end tax planning. But the one thing I really would like to focus on in today's episode for you is the idea of doing a little bit of planning now to prevent a massive amount of headache, stress, and no cash in April. Okay. So as I'm recording this, we're about at mid-December, and you've got January, February, March, April, 4 months until the April 15th tax payment deadline. I also want to give you a little reminder that the tax payment deadline cannot be extended. There is no extension of the payment deadline ever. Your tax payment is due April 15th every single year with no exceptions. You can only extend your filing deadline. You can extend your filing date for an automatic 6-month extension when you apply before April 15th, but that only extends the paperwork. The payment is still due April 15th. So when you file for a tax extension, it's really good to know you actually owe your full tax payment and you're expected to make an estimate of what you think you owe and pay that. Otherwise, interest will be accruing on your unpaid balance until you actually settle up your tax bill. Okay, so technically your taxes are late if you don't pay them by April 15th, whether or not you have an extension for the tax filing, the actual paperwork. All right, so that's a really important thing for you to know off the bat as we get into my strategy about budgeting for the cash crunch that happens on April 15th. Okay, so what is the cash crunch that happens on April 15th? It's really common with people who are newer to business, who maybe are at risk of getting into that sort of, oh shit, tax deadline, tax debt spiral, where your business starts to make money, maybe more than you expected. You didn't realize the tax bill was going to be as big as it is. You're not prepared for it. You run out of cash. You're not paying quarterly taxes and keeping ahead of your tax bill for the year. And so you can get into this bad cycle of owing for last year, having to play catch up, and not having the cash in your account to keep up with your current quarterly tax payments. Okay. This is the scenario. This is the nightmare I want to keep you out of. And so let's talk about how you can avoid that. Now, April 15th, a cash crunch comes along because you have several things due all at the same time. You've got your tax bill from the prior year, right? Your tax bill is due April 15th for the taxes from the prior year. So in April 15th, 2024, your tax bill for 2023 comes due in full, okay? Now, P.S. If you have already been on top of making your estimated quarterly tax payments throughout 2023, no stress here. You're on top of it. When you are on top of your quarterly tax payments, you don't get a big bill in April because you've prepaid most of your taxes. You should just have a little settle up amount that's not that much. You may even get a refund if you overpay. So this is really the whole purpose of what I teach and why I teach it. It is to get you on top of quarterly taxes, literally for this reason, so you don't face an April 15th tax bill, okay? But for people who have not been introduced to this world, who have not been a part of my program, who do not know that this is coming, and this typically happens for a newer entrepreneur, a newer freelancer, you should know that that if you haven't been paying quarterly taxes throughout the year, then you are about to face a full annual tax bill on April 15th, and that is not a fun scenario. Okay, so taxes from last year are due. Also, April 15th is the first estimated quarterly tax payment deadline for the next year, for 2024. So April 15th, 2024, your tax for 2023 is due, and your first estimated quarterly tax payment for 2024 is due. 2 payments on one day, okay? Now, there's a third thing that you owe on that date, which is your IRA funding. So if you want to make a contribution to an IRA, a tax-advantaged IRA, whether it's a Roth or a traditional, you need to make that contribution before April 15th. So the problem that I see people get into, they intend to pay themselves. They intend to fully fund their IRA, right? They want to do that, but they don't realize how big their tax bill is going to be, or they're not prepared to pay their first estimated quarterly tax payment. And once they get that info, it's too late for them to save more money, and they run out of cash. And who gets screwed? It's you. You don't fund your IRA. And this is how you can get into a cycle of continuously, year after year, being behind the 8 ball and not paying into your tax deductible, tax advantaged, fuck you money of your IRA. Okay. So know that those 3 things all come due on the same date, but you can prepay. You can prepay both your tax bill by staying on top of estimated quarterly taxes, and you can actually put money into your IRA in advance of the deadline. April 15th is just the last day you contribute. It's not the only day you can contribute. So you could put that money in earlier in the year, and that would be fine. You just want to make sure you attribute it to the correct tax year, okay? So here's what I recommend. Here's my trick. You want to add together what you think your tax bill is going to be for the year. Maybe if you've not paid any quarterly taxes at all, maybe that's going to be a full annual tax bill. I hope not. I hope not, but maybe it is. Then take a quarter of that amount and call that your first estimated quarterly tax payment, okay? And then add in your IRA amount, which is $6,500 if you are under age 50, and it can be as high as $7,500 if you're over age 50, because if you're over age 50, you get an extra $1,000 catch-up contribution amount. So when you add those 3 numbers together, if you divide by the number of months we have between now and April 15th, as I'm recording, that's 4 months. So you would divide that number by 4, that can become your monthly budget. So if you are a little behind now, you're not as behind as you will be April 15th. So now you have 4 months of planning, and you can be setting aside that amount of money each month in order to make sure you have that amount of cash in the bank to cover last year's tax bill, this next year's first estimated quarterly tax payment, plus your full funding for your IRA. Okay, so that is my little cash flow catch up strategy that I want to give to you for today. I hope you were never in that position at all. Now, I know people get in that position, myself included, when I was a younger person starting out in this. But I understand it does happen, and this is a way to mitigate it before it gets really bad. So that's why I'm putting this episode out 4 months before the tax deadline for you. All right. Now, in a better world, what you really want to do is you want to learn about estimated quarterly taxes, how to estimate how much you pay each quarter based on your actual profit for that quarter, because that is going to be the most accurate payment. And accurate payments are how you pay only what you owe and not more. And you keep more of the cash that you need to run your business and live your life in your pocket, rather than pay large amounts of tax that are too big and don't have that cash on hand when you need it. Okay, so getting on top of your quarterly taxes is incredibly good for your business, for your cash flow, for your mental health, for your sanity, and also for being able to fully fund your retirement accounts every year. All right, so if you are listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about this, this is all new to me, I want to learn about it, then I would encourage you to take my 1 hour free class that I have on this, Understand Your Taxes and Make Money. It's just 1 hour, and I talk about how quarterly taxes work, the systems I use in my program to set you up with that, with good bookkeeping so that you can calculate your payments and pay your quarterly taxes every quarter and stay on top of your taxes and not get into that tax debt spiral. And just some ways to simplify your system so that this all becomes more automatic and less overwhelming. Basically, to give you back the headspace and take away the stress of doing this thing that is a necessary part of running your business, not just 1 year, but every single year forever. All right. So if you're interested in watching that free class to just learn a little bit more about how I help people set up this system inside my program, Money Bootcamp, you can go to go.sunlighttax.com/register. It's an on-demand class. You just want to pick a time that you can watch it, because if you go through that class and you decide you want to join my program, that's where I offer my best deal, the best deal on my program, Money Bootcamp. So no pressure, and you do not have to join the program. You will get a high-level view of how I run the program and what systems you need to stay on top of this stuff. It's just kind of a good primer if you're kind of new to this, if you're thinking like, oh shit, estimated quarterly taxes, I don't know about that, and you want to learn it in a really empathetic and helpful way. Take a listen, watch that class, because it will really teach you some good setup tips for how to do it. All right, so that's at go.sunlighttax.com/register. It's a free class. You just want to pick a time you can see, and if you are interested in joining my program, then registering and seeing that class and clicking the link that is provided when you go there, that will give you the best deal on my program that is available. All right, for all of you, I just want to remind you that April 15th is 4 months from now. I want you to just think a little bit about how ahead of your tax bill you are at the moment. It is not too late. It is never too late to make an additional tax payment toward your 2023 tax bill. You can go ahead if you are not, haven't made any payments yet so far, you can make one now. Your fourth and final quarterly tax payment for 2023 is due on January 15th. So at a minimum, you want to make sure you make that deadline. All right. I hope this has been really helpful for you. The free class, if you're interested, is at go.sunlighttax.com/register. And for all of you, take a few moments, take some time at the end of this month or right about now to just plan for your cash flow for the upcoming months as that tax bill comes due, that IRA contribution comes due, and think about if there are purchases you can accelerate in this year, expenses you can make now before December 31st. Maybe if there are invoices you might want to delay a little bit to the new year so that you can lower your taxes this year and defer any extra income to after January 1st, so it doesn't register until next year's taxes. All right, I hope this has been super helpful for you. I will see you on the next one. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review. It really helps, and share it with a friend. I'm so grateful. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links we reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.